Elizabeth at the Literary Princess. If you are new here, welcome. I have a PhD in English literature with a focus on Victorian women novelists, and as you might expect, I love to read. Happy Jane Austen July. If you don't know, Jane Austen July is an event hosted by Katie from Books and Things, Marissa from Blatantly Bookish, and Claudia from Spinster's Library, and it is all about celebrating Jane Austen in the month of July. To kick things off, today I have the Jane Austen July tag video for you. So this tag was created by Marissa and Katie back in 2019, and we won't think about how long ago that was. It was before I had a booktube channel, so I never did this tag. And I thought it would be a fun way to kick off the festivities this year. So, there are 7 questions. Let's jump in. Question number 1, what is your favorite Jane Austen book? And that has to be Persuasion. This is Austen's last completed novel, published after her death in 1818. And it is the most romantic book I have ever read in my life. This is the story of Anne Elliot, a 27-year-old woman who has lost her bloom and is in danger of being an old maid. Back in her youth, as if 27 is not young, but back then it wasn't. Back in her youth, she had agreed to marry Frederick Wentworth. However, she was persuaded by friends to break the engagement. He went off to sea, became a captain, and she remained at home, kind of pining for him, to be honest. And then he comes back into her life. It's so romantic. I love this book so much. Captain Wentworth's letter is the most romantic thing ever. I've said this many times on my channel, but I had it as one of the readings at my wedding. I also love Anne Elliot as a main character. She is probably the Austen heroine that I am most like. She is very quiet. She is pretty serious. And people really rely on her because she's actually competent and knows what she's doing. It is a much more mature work than a lot of Austen's others because, of course, it was her final work. And I love it so much. The emotion just really comes through in Persuasion so well, while still also having quite a bit of humor, including, honestly, one of Austen's best insults, and it's directed at a character that isn't even a character. He's dead when the story starts, but it's one of the best insults in her entire body of work. So yeah, this is my favorite and has been for a very long time. Question number 2, who is your favorite Jane Austen protagonist? And despite the fact that I do love Anne Elliot, my favorite Austen protagonist has to be Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. And I think that that's true for a lot of people. I love Elizabeth. She is, first of all, just so well characterized. She feels real. She's very flawed, but you still love her anyway. She is witty and always has something to say to people. And just her interactions with Mr. Darcy and with Lady Catherine de Bourgh are just so great. I mean, listen to her conversation with Mr. Darcy and Miss Bingley about accomplished women. They list off all of these qualifications that are required, and she says, "I am no longer surprised at your knowing only 6 accomplished women. I rather wonder now at your knowing any." And Mr. Darcy says, "Are you so severe upon your own sex as to doubt the possibility of all this? I never saw such a woman. I never saw such capacity and taste and application and elegance as you describe, united." Mrs. Hurst and Miss Bingley both cried out against the injustice of her implied doubt. scene. She insults these two women without like directly insulting them, and points out the absolute ridiculousness of what they are going on about. And it's just great. Another great scene is her conversation toward the end of the novel with Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Lady Catherine has heard that Mr. Darcy intends to marry Elizabeth and says, though I know it must be a scandalous falsehood, though I would not injure him so much as to suppose the truth of it possible, I instantly resolved on setting off for this place that I might make my sentiments known to you. If you believed it to be impossible to be true, said Elizabeth, coloring with astonishment and disdain, I wonder you took the trouble of coming so far. What could your ladyship propose by it? At once to insist upon having such a report universally contradicted. Your coming to Longbourn to see me and my family, said Elizabeth coolly, will be rather a confirmation of it, if indeed such a report is in existence. If, do you then pretend to be ignorant of it? Has it not been industriously circulated by yourselves? Do you not know that such a report is spread abroad? I never heard that it was. And can you likewise declare that there is no foundation for it? I do not pretend to possess equal frankness with your ladyship. You may ask questions which I shall not choose to answer. This is not to be borne. Miss Bennet, I insist on being satisfied. Has my nephew made you an offer of marriage? Your ladyship has declared it impossible. It ought to be so, it must be so, while he retains the use of his reason. But your arts and allurements may, in a moment of infatuation, have made him forget what he owes to himself and to all his family. You may have drawn him in. If I have, I shall be the last person to confess it. Miss Bennet, do you know who I am? I have not been accustomed to such language as this. I am almost the nearest relation he has in the world, and am entitled to know all his dearest concerns. But you are not entitled to know mine, nor will such behavior as this ever induce me to be explicit. Let me be rightly understood. This match to which you have the presumption to aspire can never take place. No, never. Mr. Darcy is engaged to my daughter. Now, what have you to say? Only this, that if he is so, you can have no reason to suppose he will make an offer to me. Like, Queen, she's great. To be that frank in the face of this woman who is so much higher than her in status, who has so much power, and who is obviously furious. I love her so much. Does it help that she's played by Keira Knightley in the 2005 movie, and Keira Knightley is my favorite actress? Yes. But even just on page, Elizabeth Bennet is a phenomenal protagonist. Question number 3. Name a book off your shelves that you think Jane would wholeheartedly approve of and why. For this, I have to say Miss Marjoribanks by Margaret Oliphant. This is a Victorian novel following Lucilla Marjoribanks as she returns home to Carlingford to take charge of society. I think that Oliphant is very much inspired by Austen, particularly in this book, because Lucilla Marjoribanks is what Emma Woodhouse would have been if she were competent. That's what I always have to say about this book. Lucilla comes in and just swiftly and deftly takes control of everything without anyone even realizing what's happening. Oliphant has this very cool, ironic tone that I think Jane Austen would have adored. And there are some truly hilarious minor characters in here that I think she would have been delighted with. Question number 4, name a book off your shelves that you think Jane Austen would have hated and why. This was hard, but honestly, this isn't even just one book. It's like the author's whole body of work. But I have here, for an example, Salem's Lot by Stephen King. Now, as many of you who've been around the channel may know, my 2 favorite authors in the world are Jane Austen and Stephen King. But I do not think Jane Austen would have enjoyed Stephen King's books at all. First of all, I think she would have been very put off by how kind of crass some of his language is. But I also think she would just not appreciate the supernatural elements and the amount of violence and gore and just general of Stephen King. Now, Austen enjoyed Gothic novels. We know that she read many of them from Northanger Abbey, where she is kind of satirizing it, but playfully and lovingly. We know she read and liked Anne Radcliffe. However, the thing with Anne Radcliffe is that though there's a few things with Anne Radcliffe and the other Gothic writers of the time that Austen would have been reading. First of all, it's a genre that is much more reliant on terror than horror. My professor explained the difference between those two as terror is that build-up, that suspenseful dread that you get as you're walking down the long hallway with the creepy door at the end and the light and whatever, and the shadow on the wall or whatever. Horror is when the actual thing appears and it is horrifying and scary. Gothic of the 18th and 19th century relies on that terror and does not have so much of that horror. Whereas Stephen King, while definitely having the terror, has a lot of the horror. And I think just based on what Austen read and liked, I don't think she would have enjoyed these. And also, Anne Radcliffe's novels, the things may seem supernatural, but they are always proven to not be supernatural. And that is not the case in Stephen King. Like Salem's Lot, those are vampires. So I just think she would not like him, which is kind of too bad because, again, they are my two favorite authors, but it's understandable. Question number 5, who is your favorite minor Jane Austen character? I think I have to say Jane Fairfax from Emma. Jane Fairfax's story fascinates me because in another novel it would have been the main plot and we would have been following her. But instead, Austen has it as kind of like this side plot happening off to the side of our main character. And she's involved in it without even realizing what on earth is going on. But I think Jane is so fascinating, and I want to know what is going through her head through all of these. There are a few retellings of Emma from Jane Fairfax's point of view. I have not been able to read any of them yet, but I am very curious to check them out because I want to see this story from her point of view because she just fascinates me. I also will say that I have a very fond place in my heart for Mr. and Mrs. Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. And that is because they are basically my grandparents. My grandmother is a lot like Mrs. Bennet in so many ways, like right down to the oh my poor nerves. Or was, I suppose, she's passed. And then my grandfather always reacted with this kind of snarky sarcasm and humor that Mr. Bennet is so famous for. And I remember the first time I read this and was then talking to my mom, I was like, it's Grammy and Grampy. Like, so I am very fond of them for that. And I mean, they're hilarious characters in general, but it always just makes me especially happy that to see these characters that are just so much like these people that are in my life and that I have experienced. right down to the Mrs. Bennet being obsessed with getting the daughters married off. My grandmother was obsessed with me getting married. Obsessed. So I'm very fond of them for that. Question number 6, name a book off your shelves that you feel was somehow inspired by Jane Austen's body of work. And for this, I want to talk about Tooth and Claw by Jo Walton. Let me read you the back of the book. A family deals with the death of their father. A son goes to court for his inheritance. Another son agonizes over his father's deathbed confession. One daughter becomes involved in the abolition movement, while another sacrifices herself for her husband. And everyone in the tale is a dragon, bred in tooth and claw. Here is a world of politics and train stations, of churchmen and family retainers, of courtship and country houses, in which, on the death of an elder, family members gather to eat the body of the deceased, in which the great and the good avail themselves of the privilege of killing and eating the weaker children, which they do with ceremony and relish, thereby growing stronger. You have never read a novel like Tooth and Claw. You really haven't. And then on the back, there is also this quote from Jane Yolen that says, Jane Austen may have been a society dragon, but these are real dragons, bred of tooth and claw, and Jo Walton never lets you forget it. This is the Pride and Prejudice of the dragon world. And it really is. I mean, down to the obnoxious clergyman trying to push his proposal on a woman who wants nothing to do with him. It's clear that Austen heavily influenced Walton's work, as did authors like Charles Dickens and William Makepeace Thackeray. But it really does feel like Jane Austen with dragons. And it's delightful. I had such a good time with it, and I would highly recommend it if you are a fan of both fantasy and of Jane Austen, or really any other 19th century novels, because it's written in that style, and it is just so good. I love it. I need to reread this. But yeah, definitely influenced by Austen. And question 7, the final one, is which Jane Austen character do you simply love to hate? There are so many. There are so many. I think, though, I must say, Lady Catherine de Bourgh from Pride and Prejudice. I already read you that conversation with Elizabeth. I mean, this woman is insufferable. Another great conversation with her happens when Elizabeth is visiting Mr. Collins and Charlotte Lucas, who is now Charlotte Collins, and they go to Rosings for a dinner with Lady Catherine. So Elizabeth is having a conversation with Colonel Fitzwilliam, and Lady Catherine interrupts. What is that you are saying, Fitzwilliam? What is it you are talking of? What are you telling Miss Bennet? Let me hear what it is. We are speaking of music, madam, said he, when no longer able to avoid a reply. Oh, music, then pray speak aloud. It is of all subjects my delight. I must have my share in the conversation, if you are speaking of music. There are few people in England, I suppose, who have more true enjoyment of music than myself, or a better natural taste. If I had ever learned, I should have been a great proficient. She's insufferable. Truly insufferable. And I love it. She's deliciously awful. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And that just, you hate her, but you love hating her. So that is the Jane Austen July tag. Since this is such an old tag, I will not tag anybody, but I would love to hear some of your answers down in the comments below. Thank you to Marissa and Katie for making this tag. And thank you to them, as well as Claudia, for hosting this event, one of my favorite times of the year. Happy Jane Austen July, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of my bookish content. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.